Joining me from the other side of the aisle in the United States Senate, Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. He's chairman of the Homeland Security Committee. Senator Johnson, welcome back to the show, sir.
Good morning, Chuck.
Let me start with the vice president's visit with some Senate Republicans down to a couple of centers there. One of them, the pool reporter traveling with the vice president, described a horrendous stench when they walked into the facility. The vice president himself said this was tough. We've heard a lot more Republicans acknowledge the conditions here in these facilities are just unsustainable. Okay, where do we go from here? Are you comfortable with this situation?
Oh, absolutely not, which is why I was supporting the emergency funding measure for months before Democrats finally decided to cooperate and grant the $4.6 billion or vote for the $4.6 billion in funding. So that's just a first step. But Chuck, the problem is the uncontrolled, the overwhelming flow of people coming in this country illegally. In May alone, it was 4,600 people per day. Came down a little bit in June to about 3,500 people per day, but on average, it's been over 2,800 people per day for this fiscal year. So again, let me put this in context. Since 2014, that was the humanitarian crisis year that President Obama called a humanitarian crisis, when 120,000 people came to this country illegally, either as an unaccompanied child, but primarily as part of a family. Since 2014, the last 5 years, 9 months, 1,086,000 people have come in as unaccompanied child or primarily as a family unit and have been apprehended. 1,086,000 people, about half of those have come in the last 9 months alone. So it's overwhelming our system, and the goal of our policy should be to reduce that flow, turn it into a legal process. There's a number of things we can do. One of the things we have to do is we have to raise that initial bar in terms of claiming asylum. Hopefully set up centers in Guatemala, in Central America, so people can claim refugee status. But this is completely out of control.
Well, Senator, there seems to be that enforcement, there's an argument now that the extra enforcement measures, the get tough measures the president has tried, is actually encouraging more migration. Let me read you a clip here from Ricardo Salinas. He writes this: the people of Central America are left with a stark choice. Endure growing instability, poverty, and intensifying violence as part of the failed drug war, or flee now before the border is closed completely. The rapidly rising numbers of families and unaccompanied minors who are willing to risk their lives to make the perilous journey north, even knowing that detention and separation await, speak of the increasing desperation. I mean, this seems to be, we're talking about the border when the real core of the problem we're doing nothing about. If anything, the president took money away from Central America.
Well, first of all, Chuck, yeah, there is some short-term detention, but we're in full catch and release. I mean, people aren't being detained for much more than, at most, probably a couple of weeks. So we're in full catch and release. There was a survey done by the Association of Research and Social Studies in Guatemala that said that a third of Guatemalans intended to migrate to the United States. That's almost 6 million people. A Gallup poll showed 158 million people worldwide, 42 million people in Latin America want to migrate to the United States. We can't take all comers. We have to have a legal system primarily designed toward working with our economy to get people in here to work so we can continue to grow our economy. This is completely out of control. So again, the goal of our policy should be to reduce the flow of people coming into this country illegally and turn that into a legal flow.
I understand that, but you don't believe coming up with some sort of better Marshall Plan for Central America might actually be the best way to decrease the flow?
Well, that is a very long-term solution. You have our insatiable demand for drugs, has given rise to drug cartels, done great harm to the public institutions of Central America. There's no doubt about it. We bear responsibility. But that's not going to fix this problem in the here and now anytime soon. I certainly want to see money flow to make sure that we can safely return people. I'm working with the Democrat colleagues on a pilot program called Operation Safe Return, where we can rapidly and more accurately determine those families that clearly don't have a valid asylum claim, and the majority of them don't have a valid asylum claim, and safely return them to Central America. That will require some U.S. funding as well. There are also humanitarian organizations that are willing to facilitate that. But we have to have that consequence. When Michael Chertoff in 2005 faced a surge of Brazilians, set up a process of expedited removal, reduced the flow by 90% in 60 days. That has to be our first step, is to reduce the flow and then work long-term with Central America to improve the conditions down there.
I want to turn to a little bit of politics. There's a book out called American Carnage by Tim Alberta, and there's some interesting Paul Ryan quotes. Being a Wisconsin guy and a Paul Ryan guy, I'm curious of your reaction. Here's the excerpt. For a long stretch of the 2016 campaign, Paul Ryan refused to accept Trump's takeover of the GOP. He traversed the stages of grief: denial, no way Trump can win; anger, I called him a racist; bargaining, the RNC PowerPoint slides; and depression, this is fatal, he told Reince Priebus, before finally coming to terms with it. This resistance was grounded in a basic belief that the Republican Party was still his party. Looking back, Ryan says, he should have known better. You know Wisconsin, you know Ryan, you know Trump. What do you make of this dispute? Is this personal? Is this a misread of where the party is? And where do you fit?
Well, I consider Paul Ryan a friend. I've got a good working relationship with the president. I've always abided by the Ronald Reagan 11th commandment. I think we do need to realize, as Republicans and conservatives, if
President Trump
we're going to defeat the growing socialism, the Democratic left, we need to hang together here. So I think we've accomplished a lot of good things the last 2 years. We've stopped adding the regulatory burden. We have a more competitive tax system that's produced more than 3% growth. 10 times higher business investment. That's going to grow our economy in the future. So again, from my standpoint, I'd like everybody to get along, because we need to preserve this country, this marvel of the American economy and model of freedom.
Do you think President Trump's criticism of Speaker Ryan and his speakership is warranted?
Well, again, I would prefer that we all understand that the opponent in this political struggle are Democrats and their growing socialism and what they would turn America into. So we need to hang together. I'd prefer nobody criticize each other on our side.
All right. Senator Ron Johnson, Republican from Wisconsin. I'm going to leave it there. Thanks for coming on and sharing your views. Much appreciated.
Have a great day.
Hey, NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and then click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.